Today we're joined by a master builder, a lady who knows what sells and how to sell it. Ex-commercial director at Skin Rocks by Caroline Hirons and current co-founder of We Are Regular, a constipation relief supplement. Hi Holly, welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I know we have lots to get stuck into.
So much.
Holly, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about what you've been doing over the last decade or so.
Gosh. So I have been helping brand founders, influencers, celebrities build brands pretty much for my entire career. I kind of started out in talent, spent some time over in Australia and helped build a talent agency over there for 3 years.
Wow.
And that was kind of where I got a real love for just helping people create things.
Yeah.
As you said, I like to build things. I like to create things from scratch and then kind of just like see where they go. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I came back to London, stayed in talent. That was where I met Caroline. God, I mean, it must have been sort of like 8 or 9 years ago now.
Wow.
And after a few years of being back in the UK and working in talent, Caroline kind of came to me and said, what will it take for you to leave? We are about to go on this big journey with the brand and with everything. And back then it was just the kits that were kind of existing. And I was just ready to get out of talent. I think, like, obviously, when you spread and you're looking after sort of 6 or 7 talent, it's a lot and there is a lot of responsibility. And so I was kind of ready for the next challenge and, like, basically building a brand was it. So I spent 5 years doing that, which was the most incredible experience ever. I loved every single second of it. Such a privilege to be able to do it with someone like Caroline. And, yeah, was 3 people when we started and I left. There was 50. Within the team.
What was the thing that sort of made you feel like, okay, I'm ready for my next pivot?
It took, don't get me wrong, the decision was not an overnight decision. It took me a long time to get to it because there was so much skin in the game for me. Like, I was building that brand and building Skin Rocks as if it was my own, very much so. So I think to take a step away from that when, quite frankly, a lot of people were like, are you sure? Don't know if this is the right thing. This is a big, the brand is literally going on this huge trajectory.
Huge.
Why would you leave now? And honestly, all I can really explain it as is like, it was just an itch that like I had to scratch. And I knew if I hadn't done it then, I'd be committing to sort of the next 6 or 7 years with the brand. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Let me do that again.
Don't worry, he'll cut it.
Yeah, the next 6 or 7 years with the brand. And I had spent so many years building other people's dreams. And I just really wanted to build my own. I can't really explain it. You just kind of, when you know, you know.
You were just ready. You were ready to build something for yourself. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you because you are a builder of things. I'm excited to glean all of that wisdom of how can we build well. The purpose of this podcast or these videos is generally just to help people to build and scale well. Because where do you go when you are looking for that information of what do I need to build? And so I'm super excited to have you. I've got a couple questions that I think will be really beneficial to our viewers. The first one is all around operations, because I know that's a big part of building. Please tell me, what are the operational bottlenecks that tend to get brands when they are scaling from being a small business, which is earning less than 500,000 a year, to scaling to something that's walking into multi-millions?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think that's the thing when people are sort of have this idea, especially if you are an ideas person and you maybe have never built a brand before. For me, I say this so many times, the foundational levels of building a business are so crucial at the beginning, even before you're doing $500,000 a year. Do you know what I mean? Like those, but yet when you've not done it before, it can be quite a rush to sort of get into the fun stuff, let's say, because for most the fun stuff is the creative aspects and everything else. But the operational bits are so crucial and to get those foundations right. I think when you start to jump from sort of like $500,000 onto sort of $1 million to, those sorts of size brands, for me, there's 2 things. Cash flow is a huge thing.
Cash is king.
Exactly. Cash really is king. And I've learned that firsthand in building previous brands. You don't want to be in a situation where you're making a decision based on how much cash you have in the bank. It happens, and it happens to so many brand founders and businesses because sometimes there just is no other option. But it's not a nice place. It's an uncomfortable place to be because you're having to make decisions based on when you're going to next get an invoice or. So I think managing your cash flow at the beginning and just sort of holding on to it quite tightly, especially when you have these sort of, maybe you have a particular season where sales are buoyant and you know, flying, and that's all really solid. Just at the beginning, hold on to that quite tightly, because don't be frivolous. This would be my piece of advice. But yeah, cash is king, and don't be afraid to, you know, if your business is in a place where you are being faced with a really huge decision that could essentially, you know, going into a retailer, or you don't want the lack of cash to be a decision as to why you can't do that. So from an operational standpoint, your relationships with your manufacturers are so important, because if you are fortunate and you make the decision and you choose well with your manufacturer, you will find that they will support you as they can see the potential at which your brand is growing. Relationships are like everything for me. Relationships are so important. And
after cash, I just think relationships should be paramount.
Yeah,
really.
100%, because without them, I really don't think you have a huge amount, because it's very easy to burn bridges, but it's so difficult to build really solid foundations. So build great relationships with your manufacturer. If they really do believe in you, they will support you, even when potentially cash might be a bit tight, because when you go into a retailer, you know, you are expected to pretty much front the cash and the investment to buy the stock to then go into retail, because typically retail payment terms are pretty long. So you just want to make sure that you've got the right people behind you, even if not directly in the business. And then that kind of leads on to my second point, which is, especially when you're at that kind of pivot of like 500,000 upwards, by that point, you would hope that you would have a team. However, I've seen it happen way too many times where founders find it difficult to let go of control, and the first hire will always be like the most difficult kind of first one to do, because one, you've got to relinquish control, which is difficult for a lot of founders, for a lot of people in general. And so that first hire is really crucial, because it gives you the confidence to understand that you can do it. And I also think brand founders and business owners can put quite a lot of pressure on themselves at getting it right. I'm going to say right now, you are never going to get every single hire right when you build a business. Like, it just, if you do, please let me know, because I think I've never met a founder who's been able to do that. As you know,
I definitely agree. Your first hire is going to be your hardest hire. But just going back to one of the first things that you said about having systems in place, having a good foundation, I think it's so important that all your information is documented. It's in a method that you understand and everyone else understands, because when it comes to execution, you need to be able to take a break and not wonder, like, is this business going to continue without me? And I think burnout is another reason why people don't necessarily scale as well as they could have, because they don't have systems and people in place that will carry them through times where they need to take a break 100%. Or sit back a little bit.
Yeah, my business partner says to me all the time, also she's one of my oldest friends, but she says to me, she's like, you do need to learn to kind of take a bit of a break, but like we're in that phase where we're kind of just like gearing up for launch, so it's all just kind of go. But it's really important. And I think finding those people that you can trust to potentially run the business when you're not there. But equally, you have to acknowledge the fact no one is going to love and be as passionate about the business as you are as a founder. And you have to be okay with that, because when you do find people, I would consider myself like that when I was working alongside Caroline. Like, I did build that business as if it was my own. But equally, I knew it wasn't. And again, no one was going to love it, and no one was going to be as passionate, and no one was going to care as much as Caroline. But I think when you do find those people, you have to hold on to them, but you have to be aware of the fact that you're never going to find people.
Absolutely. And I also think it's important to hire well. Hire people that are smarter than you in an area that you perhaps aren't as great at. Also hiring people that potentially have a good work ethic. Because
100%,
the wrong person or wrong people will slow your business down.
Yeah.
And I think that being able to trust whoever you've brought in is so important, because if they are a credible, chemist of 10 years, you need to be able to trust their experience and trust that they will do the job and carry it out well for you. Because if you kind of control that, you end up losing that, and then
Well, then you ask yourself, why did you hire them in the first place? Because if
Right.
you're going to be holding on to them so tightly, they're not going to be able to work to the best of their ability. Most people do like to have the freedom.
Yes.
So you do have to, and you just have to be comfortable with stuff. Maybe stuff definitely will go wrong.
Step back, but kind of
Yeah.
have a few measures in place, but just step back and let them be.
Exactly. And I think to your point around having the foundations and like the systems and stuff in place at the beginning, I'm so process driven because it's quite hard to reverse engineer stuff in the future. If you do focus on the stuff that is more of the fun or more enjoyable aspects of growing a business, to reverse engineer and because you will eventually at some point need the systems and the processes in place. And obviously you want to do it at the right time. You don't need, certain systems from the get-go, but it's very hard to reverse engineer them. So there's certain things that you just want to, accounting, for example.
Yeah.
Don't leave that until, you need to do your VAT return or, the end of the year. It just get that in place, solid warehouse. And like I said, manufacturer, kind of really important in the beginning if you are a product-based business.
I think developing agile systems, especially when it comes to new product development, is so important. So have your stage gate system of what happens in every instance, have that ready. And then obviously as you grow, it's going to develop and it's going to move. But I think having the foundations there is so key and crucial
100%.
to success.
100%.
Automating, making sure that
I mean, we're in the age of automation now. So, I mean, in terms of all of that,
I know,
do feel
right?
quite privileged that we're launching something or building a brand like in this era just because of how much support
we have now.
we have.
I absolutely do love AI. I think it's an incredible
same.
tool for automation. It's a credible tool for getting things done efficiently and faster. And I think finding ways to implement that in the beginning
Crucial.
would
And
definitely help.
cost saving. Let's be real.
No, that's good. I have a quick question around direct to customer, and the inspiration around this was just watching Hailey Bieber fly off the shelves
Yeah.
of TikTok through her keychain and her phone case, and just having such a marketable business. One of the things that I find is that brand owners are so mesmerized by this idea of, I need to be in Sephora. I'm going to be in Ulta Beauty. I need to get to Superdrug. I kind of feel like sometimes that's the pinnacle of success for them. Talk us through direct to customer versus bricks and mortar. What's most beneficial?
I'm a huge Hailey Bieber fan for many reasons, but one of the biggest is just watching how she's built Rhode over a really short period of time. I think one of the things that she's not the only person who's created a brand in this way. However, I think it's very interesting. She had her audience, right? Most people do go into retailers to expand their reach, to build new customer bases, because not everybody has 55 million followers before they launch a brand.
Yes.
So
Not everyone has that social leverage.
no. And she did. However, what I do find really interesting is that you have, on one side, you've got Hailey, who built Rhode. You then also have Kylie Cosmetics. Kylie,
Yes.
she went down a completely different route. She is in every single retailer that you can pretty much imagine. She's in airports, she's in Harrods, she's all over. She's literally everywhere. I mean, pretty much wherever I go, I'll see. I think that move probably came in when Coty acquired like 50% of the business. And I think that was probably very much their strategy, because what I see is those more traditional brands that have been around for a very long time that sit under a group like Coty tend to have a similar strategy. Rhode didn't do that, and I think she was really, from the get-go, I've read so much about obviously the acquisition and what that meant and how the team was structured. That team knew what they were doing she hired well. She brought in people that knew their areas really, really well. And ultimately, they clearly were confident in how they were scaling the brand. So why would you go into a retailer? Because ultimately, whilst being in retailers is huge kudos for your brand. And there's certain retailers that, especially as a British brand, for example, if you go into Liberty, let's say, the US and like the likes of Sephora and those, they look to retailers like that because it's almost like a tick of approval. So I can understand why retail is really appealing, and it is because, like I said, if you've not got that audience, it does put you in front of new customers. But Hailey didn't need to do that, because I think she was just, I think year on year, the scale at which she built that brand, I think they saw between last year and the year before about 100% growth, like on their own website only, you know, and they've got exceptional marketing campaigns. They were really smart with the merchandising. You know, the introduction of the phone case was genius. She would have acquired so many customers just through that. Yeah.
Even I, as a formulator, knew that lip gloss wasn't necessarily what I wanted, but it was more the novelty of having this phone case.
It was really, really smart. And so I think that's where the sort of, I guess, pull for retail comes from.
Okay, so for someone who doesn't have any social leverage, perhaps wants to expand their reach, doesn't necessarily have capital to get into a retailer like Sephora or Ulta, what would you suggest would be their first sort of steps?
God, it's a really good question. I mean, the thing is as well, if we're talking about a beauty brand, right? And, you know, because every sort of product is different, obviously beauty is really what I know, is you do have to be willing in this day and age of social, you do have to be willing to push the boundaries in terms of that virality that you need to kind of acquire from the get-go. And I actually find that as a brand founder myself, you do have to step into a very much different role, but one that maybe at the beginning feels a little bit uncomfortable. For example, if you're building a personal brand versus building a product-based brand, the demand that's required on you as to, I guess, the strategy and the approach when it comes to marketing are very different. And that can feel a bit uncomfortable at the beginning. But social is obviously going to be
a big thing.
A huge thing.
Finding new ways to cost effectively push yourself out there. I've seen a lot of people. There's a brand, P. Louise, that I had never heard of before.
I have heard of
it. She did really well with TikTok Shop and TikTok Lives, and she's just really scaled her business via TikTok. I've seen people have great success with Amazon stores.
Yep.
And these are not necessarily cost-effective ways, because I know Amazon takes a good 30%.
Yeah.
But they are accessible ways to sort of get into the market with ease.
I think 100%. I think one of the key things is really asking yourself and like being brutally honest with yourself about what kind of brand do you want to be. Because there are certain brands that if you have...
That is a good point. You have to write that out.
If you have big goals for huge ambitions to, you know, one day sell to the likes of Coty or someone else...
Yeah.
The reality is Amazon's probably not going to be your best bet from the beginning.
Not.
Because that to them is, now don't get me wrong, you know, L'Oreal, all their brands are on Amazon now because they're Lauder and because they're L'Oreal. They can do that.
They can do that.
But I think I think sometimes, again, it kind of comes back to this knee-jerk decision-making when you're in the early stages because you're so excited to have a opportunity. But is that opportunity going to, in the long run, potentially shoot you in the foot?
Yeah, I think that's important. Again, then going back to basics and defining your brand positioning, defining your niche, where you want to be and who you see your brand as, or what you see your brand as, and who your customer is. Is it mass market? Is it more of a premium feel, et cetera, et cetera? That's such a good point, actually.
Really
but what I have found with Amazon Shop has now been more around the idea of convenience. With Amazon, you get next day delivery. And so people just want their product in front of an opportunity, not so much have considered that Amazon is definitely mass market. What you see in Liberty is probably not going to be on Amazon.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that expectation, obviously Amazon has created that need for immediacy from consumers. But what I do like is when you see brands that kind of just think, actually, I'm all right with that. Because to be able to offer a service like that, you know, with delivery in less than 24 hours, if I order something at 10 o'clock tonight, it's probably going to be on my doorstep tomorrow.
I also think that speaks to the quality of the brand.
And the type of customer that you're going to acquire.
Absolutely.
Not that either one is like negative. It's more just the fact that
what your positioning is.
Yeah, and if you believe in your product and the service, I'm not saying, you know, by no means do you want your product taking a week to get there. However, I've experienced pretty big brands that do have, you know, lead times not far away from that. And you just think, but equally, I think if you believe in your product enough, people will wait. Like, you know.
Oh, massively. They will wait.
Exactly. So
if they want it, they will wait, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that also builds up their almost suspense for wanting it. And I think sometimes what you get easily, you don't always appreciate.
Yeah.
Whereas what you have to have waited for, it's like, oh, it's finally come now.
Exactly. I do have a bit of a stick with like the our need as humans for we're not as patient anymore as we used
We're
to
not.
be.
We're definitely not.
We want everything immediately, and we want it all now. And I think we need to be more comfortable
with waiting.
Not getting everything we want all the time.
Patience.
Do you know? Yeah.
For sure.
But when you're building a brand, it's difficult. Like, don't get me wrong.
I totally agree with that. Just to move on to like commercial KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. What commercial KPIs, when you are scaling, you've got this stable brand, what would you say would be the KPIs a brand needs to focus on in their first 18 months of scaling? They're making $500,000 a year. They're now ready to scale. What are the key things that they should focus on?
NCA, NCA, NCA. And I will say that till I'm blue in the face, because it is, having been, on working for a brand where the brand went through many different phases, has now received investment. I've been in rooms with investors before when building brands, and it is the first thing that they ask. How fast are you acquiring new customers? NCA stands for new customer acquisition. And it is ultimately, they want to see that you are acquiring customers at a rate that is continuing to grow. If you are slightly stagnant in that area, or your new customer acquisition is declining, that's kind of a red flag to anyone who would be interested in your business. So like NCA, how are you acquiring customers? And how are you spreading the risk when you do acquire those customers?
What would you say are the best ways to acquire customers quickly? Just a few ways.
TikTok, for sure, as a beauty brand. I mean, I think, I think there's a real misconception with TikTok in terms of what the opportunity is. Oh, it's cheap. It's no. I think in not that long, I think it's already happening. But I think TikTok, they sell luxury handbags on TikTok for thousands and thousands of pounds. Exactly. TikTok is not a social platform. TikTok is actually it's a digital commerce. It's a storefront in itself.
It's so interesting because for me, for a very long time, I'm not getting TikTok. Sounds like Snapchat. No, thank you. But actually, as I've been on it, I've actually seen its potential.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a media outlet. It's constantly informing us. What's the latest?
Yeah.
What's hot right now?
If you think about, I guess, what was once, Google, you would obviously naturally go to Google to search sort of 5 or 6 years ago. If I want to know where's the best place to go in Lisbon, or, what should I... It's a search. TikTok is a search tool now, and TikTok is very much used as like, okay, I want to know what's going on in this. I'm just going to go to TikTok. So it operates very differently to how Instagram works, for sure. But I think TikTok is a great way for visibility. And then it's about, and then the customers will come. I think whilst NCA is really, really crucial as a KPI, and I think it's something that you should absolutely be tracking as a brand, I think it's easy to get fixated really closely on the numbers. It's quite a fine balance that you have to find between like understanding the numbers, seeing growth, but not focusing so much that you become super granular, because then you, I think, miss opportunities of how to do the actual acquisition of those people. And you tend to not always think outside of the box in terms of how you can acquire them. Partnerships are huge. And I think for brands who have, let's say, smaller budgets at the beginning, if you're really smart with partnerships, they're relatively low cost. You've got to obviously make sure that the brands align, but they don't necessarily need to be competing brands. Partnerships were a huge thing for us at Skin Rocks. That was, a really big marketing tool for us.
Was that the Caroline's box?
So the kits were, that was a one huge partnership in itself. But I think from a brand perspective, we would partner with, obviously we were a skincare brand, we would partner with SPF brands, or we did a partnership with Vive. Around
I think
makeup.
sometimes, and I don't believe that any man is an island by themselves, but I think sometimes people have a bit too much of a competitive edge, and so they close themselves off to the idea of partnership because they're like, oh no, I don't really want to collaborate. But actually, you don't always have to necessarily collaborate with another beauty brand. I think about Marks and Spencer's and their nail varnishes. They did something with Nails Inc. Percy Pigs times Nails Inc. The two are worlds apart. Percy Pigs are sweets.
Yeah.
Nails Inc. is a brand of nail varnish, and so you don't always necessarily have to partner with people within your industry. I think it's nice to partner within your industry, but if you felt a little bit too cliquey or cliquey, you can partner with brands outside that speak to the same type of customer
exactly
that you are selling to.
Because it's not how people shop. As in, you know, I think now that brand ecosystem has really changed. Of course, you know, like take We Are Regular, for example. It's a product for women who are constipated and men, but it's a product for people who are constipated and have suffered with not being regular. It couldn't be clearer in terms of who that product is for, but the partnership side for us is going to be so important because our brand, we want that brand to exist just outside of the product itself.
Yeah.
People aren't just, you have to kind of build that ecosystem. And I think partnerships are a really great way to do that if the alignment is there.
How else, if I was to go into an investor meeting now, they're checking how and get my customers, what are the things that they're kind of sort of looking for?
When it comes to acquiring, or what are investors looking for?
Just generally speaking, in an investor meeting.
What really surprised me with the whole process was having spoken to many different investment firms. I expected them all to have the same questions. They don't. A lot of them do look for very different things, and I think that in itself says so much about who's investing in you. Some really care about the numbers. Some actually really appreciate the brand story and what's happening, the founder story, and how you've got to, and ultimately the person that, you know, is behind the brand and the people that are behind the brand. So it's definitely not like a one size fits all. But I mean, in terms of KPIs and things, I mean, you know, retention is really important to them. How often does your customer come back? LTV is something that people want to know about. Lifetime value.
Okay, no, that's really good to hear, and it brings me to my last point now, which I think is my favourite point or question. There's often this talk, especially nowadays, where everyone is sort of wanting to become a unicorn brand. And so my question is just around, what do you think is the best way to achieve sustainable growth, both sustainably and commercially?
Yeah. We have this saying that I always say between Jolie and I, my co-founder, like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Day one of launch is one thing, but you have got to know that you are committed to see this brand through for a long period of time. I've spoken to, as I consult as well, for brands and businesses, and I've had brand founders go, look, they've got no background in beauty. They're like, I just want to create a brand, and in a couple of years, I just want to leave and sell it. That is so rare that happens. I mean, obviously Hailey Bieber is a prime example, but she's Hailey Bieber, so I think she has a little bit of free reign there. It's a very different situation. So I think, walk before you can run. Do not be in such a rush to do everything, and also really acknowledge that the brand you launch with was not going to be the brand that you go on to sell, or just, it will evolve over time.
Evolves with time, yeah.
And you have to be really okay with that, I think, for sure. Cash is king, as I've said. Cash is just really, really important. And also, one of the biggest things for me is like, stop fearing a no, because I think as a founder that can sometimes hold you back. Like, in the beginning, you have to be so open to hearing no that it won't get in your way in terms of asking for things. Like, you do at the beginning have to ask for favors, and you have to put yourself out there, and it might feel uncomfortable, and, you know, but it's those brands that will go on to sort of see the success because they're scrappy and they're not letting their ego get in the way.
They're not letting their ego get in the way.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to do another video on character development.
100%. Because there is nothing more character developing than running a business, for sure.
Definitely. There's nothing. Absolutely. I feel like it's a first class.
Yeah. Ticket to self-development and coming out the other side.
Honestly, first class track to self-development when 100%. You run a business, and not letting your ego get in the way.
It's really important.
100%. Holly, thank you so much for your time.
I
really reeled
I want
to
do this again. I want to do this again.
I've really enjoyed having this conversation with you. If our viewers wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way that they can do so?
Many different ways, but no, on social media, I am HollyVictoria _ and you can drop me an email, holly@hvbrand.co.uk, and if you want to check out our new brand, it is weare.regular on Instagram.
Thank you, Holly.
Pleasure. So nice to be here.
Well, that's it for today, folks.